Last night, man.
Like, I know, I was kinda like, "Oh, remember when we used to do Emmys recaps on previous empathy exercise that we used to call Good Doctors Diagnose?" And I was like, "Oh, those were the days." We have so many thoughts about last night. So many thoughts.
And like honestly, so many of them for me, like I have different categories of thoughts. You know what? Like, hold on. Let's get into it.
Okay.
One of my favorite things about watching like any of our media is that we both talk like this all the
All the
time.
time.
And so, like, every one of the shots from my TEDs, all the ones of us doing workshops, like, we are just
All the time.
all the
I
time.
know. Oh
Oh,
my
well.
god, it's so funny.
Okay. So, two categories of thoughts about the Emmys from moi.
Go.
One, the show was an absolute damn mess.
It was a train wreck. It wasn't even a train wreck that like you watch enjoy like
No,
out of interest.
I don't know
It
who
was
I don't know who any of that was for. I don't know. I did like the set design, like the physicality was nice. Um, but I don't understand. I didn't understand Zed's music choices, not a single one of them.
not a single one.
I didn't understand the opening number. Like, why are we talking about Friends? Like what? I'm, I don't understand why they thought they had to convince us that television was cool. Like,
I know.
we're the nerds watching the award show about television. Like,
And like if the people that are just gonna watch the clips back of the people who like they like who won, like they're not gonna hear your argument for TV being cool anyway. So like who are you making this argument to?
who are you doing? And yeah, and the voiceover announcer, I'm not entirely sure where she came from. I've never heard of her before.
Me neither.
I don't think her talents lie in announcing live award shows.
No.
At all. Hi, Sasha. So good to see you.
Hey Sasha, thanks for joining us, friend.
And also hi, Jay. Obviously,
Hi Jay.
as always.
Not as an afterthought, but you join us all the time and we love it.
Yeah. So production wise, I was just very confused.
I did not care for it.
Did not care for it at all. Us and our good personal friend Linda Holmes, are in the same camp where I really just want a show where they like list the nominees, they announce the winner, and then they let the winner talk.
Yeah, like I want a famous person to come out and announce the awards because I like to see people in fancy dresses.
And sometimes the bants at the mic, not bad.
They were horrible last night, some of them.
Some of them were quite bad. Jimmy Kimmel takes the cake, but that wasn't written. I think that was his own shtick.
Some of them last night were so awkward and
I like
cringy.
that Lizzo called out, that isn't my line. They wrote that.
Yeah. I was like, cool. Thanks for writing a line about being a big girl for Lizzo. What?
Yeah.
When she was announcing, what was it, like lead and comedy lead? I think I was in male.
Like, oh, they want me to say that the Emmy herself is a big girl. I'm like,
Yeah, no, that it was just so much was done in poor taste or no taste at all. We talked about this offline before when we were talking earlier today, and for me the strange thing is that it's like oddly co-sponsored by SNL cast members.
Mm-hmm.
Like I want to see, no disrespect to the SNL cast members, some of whom that I love who were there, but I want to see a range of presenters, and I feel like it was either SNL cast members or people shilling new shows.
Yeah, and like it's always been people shilling new shows, fine. Like,
yeah, but like it's been a better mix before.
It's been a better mix before.
I felt like it was 2 categories.
Yeah, my favorite was From La Brea, and my immediate thought was, that show is still on?
Oh, it's really in fairness, it's really popular. It got picked up.
I had no idea.
People watch it. But yeah, no, I was like, okay. And then I was like, oh, so we're showing like a lot of scenes. Like NBC has kind of made its money in the last couple of years on network television in terms of like Grey's Anatomy. Or is Grey's Anatomy ABC?
That's ABC. So they've made their thing on the Chicago,
like,
and the new Law and Order juggernaut.
And the Law and Order stuff. Yeah. So like the fact that they did a whole piece to like crime shows and cop shows when they are like the bulk of that, I was like, NBC. It all just seemed too obvious.
Yeah, and I think my thing too personally is that unless you're going to have Amy Poehler and Tina Fey, I don't need hosts.
I love Keenan. I think he's hilarious. I think it was unnecessary.
Yeah, and so much of his stand-up, like, we don't need another Leonardo DiCaprio joke. Zendaya looked like she wanted to crawl under a table when he made that.
Oh, that was horrible. It made her so uncomfortable. And honestly, like, we have Twitter. We made all of the 25-year-old Leonardo DiCaprio jokes 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, where have you been? So all that to say, the production was not for me. The last time I truly think I enjoyed an award show might have been the Golden Globes, where Amy and Tina hosted, and Christine Lottie got stuck in the bathroom and had to like run to get. That was classic. Or anytime Emma Thompson shows up and takes off her shoes. That's
so good. Drunk Emma Thompson, we are always here for.
Always here for. In terms of the awards, I don't understand White Lotus. So that was frustrating. We talked about that a lot last night together. I'm thrilled for Michael Keaton, but the fact that Danny Strong and Caitlin Dever did not win tells me that no one watched Dope Sick and just voted for Michael Keaton because he was Batman, which was also said to me because in the backstage, it appeared that the only questions he got was about Batgirl getting canceled. So that was slightly frustrating. Thrilled to death that Ted Lasso won because Ted Lasso can win all the things. Thrilled to death that Abbott Elementary won a couple times, which Abbott Elementary can win all the things. We all knew Severance was going to win Best Drama, didn't we? Like, not Severance. Succession.
Yeah.
It was always going to win. Of course it was. There was a real lack of inclusive like art back to the performances. Like there was a real lack of inclusive singers or presenters or anything else, which was slightly frustrating.
It's this thing that like I feel like I don't remember if they did it or if it was the Globes that did it. Like if the Emmys did it last year, if the Globes did it, but it was like I think it was the Globes because they were the ones getting raked over the coal for the association not being diverse, and they were like, look, we'll have a Black host and we'll have Black musicians.
The Oscars too. That was the Oscars.
Yeah, that's what like all of them have done recently. And so they had like a Black host, they had a Black announcer, they had John Legend sing a song I'd never heard of.
Evidently it's new off his album that's dropping this week. So again, PR.
Sell. And I love John Legend, but like we were just talking about like diversity is more than just Black folks. And like you can have all these people do all the work for the show, and then the first 5 awards went to white people. So like, and we didn't have a conversation about Latina peoples. We didn't have a conversation about disability or differently
able. I saw off the corner the sign language interpreter, and I was like, why aren't they on stage the whole time?
Why can't I see them the whole time so that people at home watching can see the sign language interpreter? And they had the like thing at the bottom, which was like supposed to be if people submitted their thanks in advance or whatever, so that I'm sure hard of hearing and deaf folks could do that. But I was like, why can't I see the interpreter?
Yeah. So overall, Lizzo was my favorite part. I think I would imagine that Lizzo will be my favorite part of everything until we no longer have Lizzo.
Cheryl Lee Ralph was amazing too.
Cheryl Lee Ralph is a queen. For anyone who doesn't know, just so like quick insider baseball television history, the last Black woman to win Best Supporting Actress in a Comedy was Zac Efron for 227. And it was the person who was all like up for the role. It was Zac Efron and it was Cheryl Lee Ralph.
No way. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so Jackie tweeted about this a bunch last night. And so I fell down a 227 rabbit hole, which is a show we never talk about, but was so good. And Jackie was perfect in it. People who don't know who Jackie Harry is, she is the mom and sister for that generation. So let me also explain that. So Jackie was wonderful on Twitter last night about how great it is that the next person that won was Cheryl Lee Ralph, but now could we get some more? Speaking of history for women of color, Zendaya is officially the youngest woman of color to win 2 awards for the exact same. She's the only woman of color to win 2 awards for the same role. Mm-hmm. And she is the youngest winner ever to win back-to-back awards or 2 awards for the same role.
2 awards for the same role. Yeah.
Zendaya continues to be queen of all things.
Queen of all things.
I would love, I have not seen Hacks, so I don't know if Jean Smart, but I was so pulling for Hannah Waddingham because I just wanted to see Hannah Waddingham make an acceptance speech. All I ever want in life is Hannah Waddingham to talk to me. I think I'm going to sit through Hocus Pocus 2 for her. So
I feel, and like the older I get watching these award shows, I feel like no disrespect to the people who won multiple times for the same awards, including Zendaya and our beloved Brett Goldstein and Jean Smart and Sudeikis, and like, but the more I'm like, I don't really want people to win more than once for the same role because there's so much content out there.
Yeah.
And unless they do something, no disrespect to Jason Sudeikis, but his Ted Lasso in season 1 and his Ted Lasso in season 2 did almost entirely the same thing. And it was great. And I loved it. But like, I feel like there should be like a rule. You can't win more than once for the same role because you have to pick somebody else, find somebody else that is, you can nominate people and recognize their achievement. Because I just feel bad for the folks that get nominated and keep losing to the same people.
I know. I just think like it's actually a crime that John Hamm did never won for John Draper because they just kept giving it to Bryan Cranston.
Yeah. And like, I don't even think I think most people in Hollywood, from what I've seen, don't necessarily want to keep winning year after year. Like, it's like they do say it's an honor to be nominated, and I think they mean it. And it's great to get the win and to get recognition. But I'm sure if you ask Bryan Cranston, he would be like, I would have loved for other people to have won because it was I was Walter White for like 8 seasons. I didn't need 5 Emmys.
Yeah. So real quick, Jay, Hannah Waddingham is the glam witch in Hocus Pocus 2. I don't know what that means, but the Disney Plus Instagram account has let me know that she's in it. So that's how I know.
And if you guys didn't watch the coverage at all last night, or if you didn't see her, she literally stood up for every single person who won.
Every person.
And I was just like, I love you. That's all. That's every person.
Everybody who won. We should say it was really great. There were 2 Korean language people, 2 Korean language winners from Squid Game.
First ever non-English speaking winner for male drama.
Amazing. Let's go. Netflix is getting raked over the coals, rightfully so, for some of its treatment of its creators right now. But they are also one of the only platforms bringing in non-English speaking performances. So please keep doing that. A couple other highlights, really did love back to Lizzo's acceptance speech where she essentially said none of their stories are new. Yeah. They haven't been told before. We can tell new stories. And I just like wanted to crawl through the television screen and say, that's what we've been saying.
I was like, thank you so much for our pop culture motto, Lizzo. Shout out.
And then Gina Davis. I also felt very kindred spirit with Gina and her colleague who were like, if you need any help, call us. I was like, that's like the good doctors. I was like, I felt so kindred spirit in that moment.
I know. And it's, what she's done with the Gina Davis Institute is remarkable. And it's such a fantastic example of a white woman leveraging her power to open doors for people. And like, yeah, I'm so glad she got the governor's award. There were some real highlights. There were some real highlights and real enjoyable moments last night, but they were not because of anything that the production did. They were in spite of it.
And final commentary. I find that cutting off Jennifer Coolidge and playing Hit the Road Jack was one of the rudest things I saw until Jimmy Kimmel made Quinta Brunson's acceptance speech entirely about him. So both of those were not great. No. But speaking of not great Hollywood things, we're going to move into our empathy exercises now, because the first one that we got up is from Zac Efron, who in my house we just refer to as Zephron. And he was, jacked in Baywatch. Let me scroll and see if there was a picture of him and The Rock like next to each other. Yes. Like he was very, 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 he was beyond fit. He was beyond fit. Yeah. He was dehydrated, and very, very cut. And he has said that it led to a deep depression for him. And I heard him make a quip in his show, his Netflix show, Man of something, where he like went around the world and ate around the world or something like that.
Yeah. It was cool. I watched a couple episodes.
Yeah. He said like he took a bite of a hamburger and he goes, "Oh, I'm leaving Hollywood because now I can eat hamburgers. Like I don't ever want to not eat this again." And I am really here for men being honest about how ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous the body standards are for them as well, and how incredibly unhealthy it is for them to achieve it. Chris Evans, as we have said before, has been on record for that's the fact why he never went shirtless again after First Avenger, because he had to be in so much therapy after he did the scene of Cap coming out of the Vita Ray. And it's the most to him traumatizing photo of Captain America is the Vita Ray scene. Whenever he sees it, he has terrible flashbacks. And we need, we need to be talking about how unrealistic a lot of this is. I know it a lot from the Marvel movies, obviously, because they're my love, like Sebastian Stan talking about bulking up for Civil War. And he actually cut off the circulation in his arm, on the arm they had to put the metal on. Because he tried to be Chris Hemsworth. And you know who can be Chris Hemsworth? Chris Hemsworth. You know who can be The Rock? The Rock.
Literally only Chris Hemsworth.
His brother doesn't even, his brother's body doesn't even work like his.
Yeah, and I think too, it's this intersection, and we've been talking about male mental health inadvertently just because these stories are coming out in the empathy exercises in the last couple of weeks. And talking about Justin Bieber taking time off of his tour, and even I was reminded of it last night when I was looking at coverage around Zendaya winning the Emmy, and people saying, reminding me again, I'd already forgotten that Tom Holland has taken a break from social media because of the impact. And I think it's this intersection of like the totally unrealistic expectations we have on male bodies and their performance, with then how we talk about it on social media and like being forced to deal with that. And that's one of the things Tom Holland said, was that like he would just spiral into reading all these things that people were saying about him, and it's just not healthy. And like hopefully if we have enough men talking about this, we can start to change the way we talk about it too.
Yeah, Jay just said that Hemsworth's body double was pissed when Chris bulked up so much for the latest Thor because it's entirely unattainable.
Yeah.
And we have a friend of the show, Laura Niebel. Her husband used to do competitive bodybuilding, and she's talked a lot about the long-term damage it has done on his body since leaving that sport. So we want to applaud Zach, and a little Disney Channel boy. Who had applaud him for his honesty, applaud him. We hope he continues to find roles. I would personally love it if he would find a role that had him singing again, because his performance in Hairspray and in Greatest Showman and in High School Musical are highlights for me.
So good. I love it. I love him when he is in those roles, and I think he loves being in those roles.
I know he is the one. If anyone didn't hear me rant about this before they rebooted Music Man, I wanted a young Harold Hill, and I wanted him as Harold Hill, because he would have been mwah, I mean, utter perfection.
Fire. Ooh, I literally just got chills thinking about it. Woo.
Like, if they chose to make a movie of Music Man, he is who I would put in as Harold Hill. So 100%.
Yes.
All right. There is no kind transition to this one. I mean, I thought about it. There's just nothing, guys.
If you can't do it, no one can, because you are the queen of transitions.
Guys, COVID's still around. That's the transition. So if one of the newsletters I get every morning is the New York Times' The Morning, and it came to us on September 8th, so last week, that COVID's death toll in Indigenous communities has no modern precedent. That headline really caught my eye. Also want to show, so this chart here is what I'd really love to know. From 2019 to 2021, their life expectancy, this is, common among data we have for Indigenous people, life expectancy fell from 71.8 years to 65.2.
God.
So as you can see, they already have the lowest life expectancy because of comorbidities and other things we've talked about on this channel a lot. But that drop is, and you can see the black drop is precipitous, but not quite as much as the native. They lost, 7 years on average. And, it says typically experts start to worry when they see drops in life expectancy that measure in just tenths of a year, whereas Native Americans lost nearly 7 years. There is no one explanation for COVID's death toll in these communities. But the main causes appear to be poverty. So a reminder, as always, that if you want to help people in any way, shape, or form, do things that provide them food, clothing, shelter, and clean water. Because poverty is the thing that kills more than anything else. So, that's a really...
That's a tough one. Yeah.
That's a tough one. So we just wanted to draw it to your attention, make you aware. We here at Abbey Research like to remind people that Indigenous populations exist. And we will be talking about Indigenous populations around the world for the month of October on Colonizers World Tour. So if you've always wondered why we don't say Eskimo anymore and what we say instead, definitely join us in October. Yeah. All right, now over to Erin for another one that has absolutely no transition.
Yeah. We talked about quiet quitting a couple weeks ago with our beloved Eleanor, who joined us on camera. That's how passionately she felt about quiet quitting. And this article, I'm not sure I have much to say about it, except that I want people to be aware that this is another phrase that seems to be doing the rounds on social media. Quiet firing is another buzzword in which bosses are, treating a worker badly so that they get them to quit.
So they don't have to pay them severance.
And avoid laying them off. So again, it's called quiet firing, but I think Kristen and I would say AKA being a shit manager.
Yeah, being a terrible boss. Yep.
Being a terrible boss. Oh, so this is called being a terrible boss with zero empathy for the humans you're managing. Got it. The quotes in here is an incredibly passive-aggressive way to manage poor performers. And it totally discounts that there might be other reasons why people are, quote, poor performing. It is the presumption that they are not meeting the standards that you have set, whether explicitly or not, because they're not a good worker, because they're lazy, because they don't want to work. And it presumes all of these things. And y'all know how we feel about making assumptions and not asking questions. We're not fans of it. It's literally oppositional to our definition of empathy. So as an empathy exercise, I feel like this one is filed under don't be the Cleveland Browns.
Don't be the Cleveland Browns category.
This gets filed under the don't be the Cleveland Browns category. Don't be a quiet firer. Talk to your folks if they're poor performing and it's because of the reasons I mentioned, that they don't care about the work or they're not good at it or whatever. Cool, fire them. It happens. If there are lots of other reasons, maybe you could try and find out what they are, and maybe they're just better suited to a different role, or maybe you weren't clear about what their job expectations were. There could be lots of explanations if you ask questions instead of making assumptions about why someone is not meeting up to their performance standards. But just stop with the quiet of all of this. Stop with the quiet quitting. Stop with the quiet firing. Please, for the love of all that is holy, communicate.
And also, just a slight PSA, you pay unemployment insurance for this kind of reason. Paying unemployment is part of life and owning a business. Suck it up. Suck it up.
We have feelings about it. We have feelings about it.
Something else we'd really love people to suck up is this absolute nonsense. I'm raising my voice. I am raising my voice because this makes me want, I know this is Erin's, but I need to comment on this.
Please do.
Please coming out of my mouth. This absolute utter nonsense that fictional characters have to be white. Guys, you know why elves can be people of color? Because they're not people. Like,
they're elves.
They're elves.
They're not humans.
Elves. We can do blue dragons, but we can't do brown elves.
I know. I'm like, where were all these people for Avatar? Where are all these people for like alien races on Star Trek? They're mad. Like, they're totally accepting of like Jabba the Hutt on Star Wars, but a black Jedi is a step too far. Like, I cannot. This is a real struggle in empathy for both you and I, because it's racist. We know why it's racist. I understand why. But like, we cannot wrap our brains around how people actually make this argument.
Also, a reminder that this is happening to Halle Bailey, whose teaser clip for Little Mermaid came out this week. Guys, fire. That everyone plan right now to see Little Mermaid in theaters because she sounds incredible.
Yeah.
Mermaids can be whatever color they want them to be because mermaids are not real.
Mermaids are not real. Neither are elves, or orcs, or dwarves, or
Thanos, which is why he could be purple. Like, come on, guys.
Yeah, it's absolute nonsense. But what is not absolute nonsense is, in case you didn't gather from our ranting, the most recent comments in sci-fi fantasy landia about having folks of color in acting roles has come from the launch of the new Lord of the Rings Rings of Power show, which is on Prime Video, that I am enjoying very much. As it airs, we've got 3 episodes up, and people were just raging. There's a black elf. I think that's pretty much what they were mad about. There's other people of color, like, oh yeah, there's black Harfoots, which are like the precursors to hobbits, and like raging. People are raging. The response from empathetic and lovely fans of Lord of the Rings was to create this t-shirt and lots of other merchandise. I myself bought a sticker that says, you are all welcome here in Elvish. And then it has a range of ears in all different colors. And it made me so happy. It also made me so happy that these gentlemen pictured here, who were in the original Lord of the Rings, Dominic Monaghan and why can't I remember
Elijah
your
Wood
third
and Billy Boyd?
Billy Boyd, yeah. Elijah Wood, I remembered. Billy Boyd. They were hobbits in the original series. They wore these shirts. Also, Sean Astin posted a picture with the hat. So Sam and Frodo in on the action. And you can buy all of this kinds of merchandise from the dude who made it, Don Marshall, who's a TikTok user, and likes to share obscure Lord of the Rings facts. So if you're into that, find him on TikTok. But he created this, and if you buy it, money goes to support charities that are involved in advocating for Black and Indigenous and Latino people of color. So this was the empathetic response. This was like the beauty on top of the nonsense, was to say, we are a part of this franchise, and we believe that you can be whatever flippin' color you want to be when you're an elf, because you're an elf. And yes, Sasha said about mermaids, they are half fish. Fish come in every color. Exactly, Sasha. Like, So we both feel very, very strongly about this. I feel very strongly about how much I love the response from these 4 gentlemen and all the other members of this franchise who are saying nonsense. We call BS.
Also BS is the fact that the Boy Scouts have been allowed to reorganize.
To be filed under BS.
So I feel really torn about this.
We're on the struggle bus today, y'all.
Guys, bankruptcy law is complicated. It is a mess. I am not a third-year law student who understands bankruptcy law. Part of why they went bankrupt originally was to largely avoid paying any fines to the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, tens of thousands of men who have alleged sexual abuse while they were Boy Scouts. So I am glad that they are not going to be allowed to go bankrupt. I don't love this reorganization plan because it doesn't, from everything I've read, allow quite as much focus on making sure this kind of stuff never happens again as it does, like, let's just keep moving forward and have money to pay those people. So the reorganization plan is just, it's not my favorite. Mm-hmm. I don't read a whole lot of true remorse from the institution. And a lot of the actions that they've taken is in. So $2.46 billion is what it will cost to settle all the cases it has. There will also be additional funds to set aside for more boys coming forward, more boys and men coming forward. But none of this particular reorganization plan actually pays for making sure it never happens again. And they had an opportunity to do that in the structure, to set aside some of the money for training or background or more excessive background checks or something. And they chose not to do that. So scouting is really, Girl Scouts was a huge part of my life. And the differences between Girl Scouts of America and Boy Scouts of America are wide and myriad. And I don't necessarily understand why the Boy Scouts couldn't have just called the Girl Scouts and been like, how'd you guys avoid doing this? And they would have been like, we ran background checks. So I don't love this. I love that the people are going to get paid. But this is a middle of the road. This I vote on this.
Agreed.
What I don't vote on is this great idea that an advanced placement course will be taught in African American history at high schools across the U.S. Erin, tell us about it.
I know, super excited when I saw this. For the first time in academic history, y'all, year of our Lord 2022, high school students across the nation now have the option to take an African American advanced placement course. And this was approved. It's a new pilot program approved by the College Board. So they're going to test it out in 60 schools across the U.S. And they developed the course curriculum with high school teachers at Howard University. So getting the HBCU in there. And then after the pilot year, they'll add more schools. And I think, this is a wonderful thing to see, especially in the age in which so many folks are arguing against the teaching of an authentic and an inclusive understanding of American history, which includes being honest about our history of treating enslaved and formerly enslaved Black folks in this country. But also what I'm excited about is that it is not just going to be the history of all the horrible things we've done. It's also going to be exploring the cultural, artistic, and political contributions of African Americans in an expansive way. Which is, it's real easy to just talk about all the horrible things we did. And we do need to talk about them honestly and more explicitly, and to teach about them more honestly and explicitly. but we also need to celebrate all aspects of what it means to be an African American in this country. And I wish I would have had this opportunity. When I was in high school, I loved my AP history class, which was on US history. And yeah, I would have eaten this with a big old spoon to learn about all this kinds of aspects. Because even when we were in high school, I know you and I both knew there was a deficit in our understanding in this, that we have been clawing our way towards understanding in the last 25 years. So super exciting news. I'm sure it's going to go so smoothly and there will be zero protests about it, but I'm choosing to just be happy that it's happening.
I think that's a good plan. Excuse me. One of the reasons that we know there will be protests is that people don't seem to understand what colonization is.
They don't.
So this is the big topic today besides the Emmys. We promised over the last couple of days that we would talk about the death of Queen Elizabeth II and the promotion of King Charles III. In full disclosure here, we are not royalists. We don't believe the institution is necessary. And while it appeared like Queen Elizabeth was a rad lady with a cool sense of humor, she pretty down to earth for a queen. She still willingly and consistently upheld the empire. She will be buried with stolen jewels from conquests of colonization. And she had the power to change many of those things and chose not to. And we can talk about how, she oversaw the end of empire. She didn't just grant independence to any of those people.
It wasn't like a passive, like, I have realized the wrong that I've caused. I set you all free. That's not how it went.
No. And I respect that, like, politically, maybe she couldn't have, but symbolically, she certainly could have done a lot. And she chose not to for any number of reasons. Possibly.
And she believed in the empire. She
believed in the empire. She believed in the Commonwealth.
Let's be honest. Call a spade a spade.
She didn't appear to be bothered by the legacy, especially of the wind. Oh God, I want to say
Windrush.
Thank you. The Windrush generation. Not bothered by the stolen generation in Australia, which was part of her Commonwealth. And, there was no commentary from the Crown around the bodies of the mass graves found in Canada, which is a Commonwealth country. No commentary of the Magdalene laundries of the abuse of Catholics when Ireland was still united. Anything like that. Or the use of armed force against her citizens by her army in Northern Ireland. There's lots of things that she didn't comment on. And so I find it very dubious when people are kind of saying, like, she was cool. We don't need, like, it would be rude to talk about colonialism.
Yeah.
It's not rude to talk about colonialism because we are not mourning the person. None of us knew the person. We are mourning the symbol. And the symbol was messy and complicated. Mm-hmm. The symbol was a problem. So if you want to have conversations around, if you are besties with Will and Harry, and you want to say, let them mourn their grandmother, don't say nasty things about her right now. I have other problems with that, and that's a different paradigm, but I'll give you that. I won't give you, we can't criticize the Crown.
Yeah, because it smacks really strongly of the way in which people who don't want the situation to change in a whole host of debates often say that the time after a death or an act of violence is not the time to have the conversation. So we use this all the time here in the United States with mass shootings and discussions about gun control. Well, now is not the time to have this conversation. We should be sending our thoughts and prayers for the family and allowing them to grieve, and we should not be talking about the messier aspects of this. And, we are both students of the United Kingdom, and many of its colonies. And having lived there for 5 years, we know a lot of this culture, a lot more than most Americans. I am alarmed at what I am seeing coming out of the UK right now in terms of its restricting free speech, and claiming a whole host of things are inappropriate to be talking about during this mourning period. I am alarmed at the fact that people who were peacefully protesting King Charles III were arrested and detained under public order laws in a way that is, to me, holding up the system of oppression and exclusiveness that the monarchy represents to a lot of people. If the United Kingdom is a free society, then people should have the right to have their opinions about the monarchy, especially in a way in which it is associated with so much pain and trauma for so many people of the parts of the colonial empire. And I was at a friend's birthday party this weekend, and we were talking about this specific incident in the mentioned in the article that we have up here now from BuzzFeed News, which is from my hometown of Pittsburgh, in which Carnegie Mellon professor Uju Anya got into some trouble from CMU and a lot of other people for tweeting that she wished Queen Elizabeth II excruciating pain. And her full tweet was, "I heard the chief monarch of a thieving, raping, genocidal empire is finally dying. May her pain be excruciating." Now, is that something I would have tweeted, even though I felt very strongly about the legacy of colonialism in the British Empire? Probably not. But it's not my business. Twitter is free, and we're trying really hard not to police necessarily anything unless it's like actively causing harm to people. I'm sure people were upset by this and seeing this tweet, especially those that are grieving the loss of the monarch. But I think there's so many emotions underlying her tweet that it's worth considering. It's worth us saying, why is there so much pain in this tweet? And where does it come from? And why is this person in pain and angry? Because having empathy around the death of the Queen is about understanding where people come from. And that's why we wanted to talk about today that, we have our own personal feelings about the monarchy and the death of the Queen as a person, and the Queen as Elizabeth Regina, the symbol of the monarchy and of the British Empire. She was not just the symbol of the monarchy. She's the head of state, head of church. She did not just represent the royal family. She represented the entire United Kingdom, which is included a lot of violence. But where I fall on this is that so much of the debate is black and white now. You can't be sad about the Queen because colonialization. You can't be mad about the Queen because she died. Like either or, black, white, when it's really gray. And what we should be saying is, I don't agree with the way that you are talking about this. Don't have to. I don't necessarily agree with the way that CMU professor phrased it. I don't have to. I can understand it empathetically by learning more about who she is as a person. Her family, she's a child of immigrants from a colonized nation. I'm scrolling to see if it's
Nigeria. She's Nigerian.
Nigerian. Her parents were born and raised in Nigeria. She has very strong feelings about the British state's relationship with her homeland. And she was lambasted on social media. CMU was publicly upset with her. So was Jeff Bezos, who asked him, I don't know. But she came back and said, "I'm there. I will not apologize. I stand by what I said." So I think we wanted to have this conversation just to say, like, look, there's a lot of feelings out there. Just let people have their feelings. Try not to police them unless they're causing active harm. it's complicated. Like, let it be complicated. She was not one easily understandable, identifiable chunk of human.
Nope.
That's all we're saying. Let people talk about colonialism. We don't talk about it enough.
Yeah. These are all points we raised in our newsletter last week, by the way. So if you are not as part of our digest, the link to join is on the screen right now or in the comments if you're on YouTube or Facebook. And we are trying our best to have as many conversations about colonization as we possibly can, to at least poke holes in this idea of black and white ways to view the world, especially in terms of colonization. There are lots of countries that were colonized and then turned around and colonized other people groups. There's lots of shades of colonization. There is economic colonization. There is total colonization. There is what the Dutch did, which is let's just figure out where the map is and then we like there's lots of
such bad colonizers
or perfect colonizers. It depends. They gave us the map.
Yeah, depending on whom you ask. Yeah.
And it is really also a brief reminder in this incredible global world. The likelihood that you know somebody in a Commonwealth country that you may not realize is a Commonwealth country is also high. Americans don't remember that there is a Commonwealth. And
my brother was over for dinner last night and I heard them talking about in the living room. They were like, I didn't know there were so many Commonwealth countries. I was like, yeah, nobody does.
There's a lot. And there's a lot of different ways you can be in the Commonwealth. Bermuda has a different relationship than Australia does. And Barbados and everything else. And so it's incredibly important to remember that colonization is not something that happened. It is happening, not only because of the legacy and the impacts, especially when you look at places like Haiti, but the very real and felt family stories and legacies that the people that were alive at the revolutions are still alive, a lot of them. Brief reminder, most of the people who chose any sort of level of independence did so in the 50s and 60s. Color television happened.
Yeah, 50s, 60s, and 70s. We have footage of what a lot of the British intervention looked like in these former colonies, and Portuguese intervention, and French intervention, and Belgian intervention. Like, decolonization happened in the latter part of the last century.
Yeah, it's color photographs and synthetic fabrics. Like it's not in the yesteryear.
Mm-hmm.
So it's messy. It's a thing. Also, people are weird about the British Empire, like the British crown, the Anglophile nature of it. People are just a little bit weird about it. And so there's just that. There's that. So we really love to kind of, as you know, trouble the narrative. I want to thank Siobhan and Jay and Sasha and everybody for coming. We are going to wrap up now. Aaron and I could talk about the Queen forever, but we'll stop. And we want to bring up a great point that Sasha just brought up in the comments, which is that tomorrow on Hulu.
What is this?
We get Handmaid's Tale season 5. Now, we want you to know in the off season, we had interaction with somebody who may have been Bruce Miller, the showrunner of Handmaid's Tale. And that person, who may or may not have been Bruce Miller, we could not ascertain the truth of the identity, did not love our criticism. What we'd like you to know is that has not dulled our criticism whatsoever.
Not in the least.
We are incredibly nervous about season 5, but we would love for you to join us in that nervousness. And so while our recaps will still be free on YouTube, absolutely, like they always are, if you want some bonus stuff, including right now, it looks like at the end of September, we're going to do a live kind of conversation on Zoom about how we feel about the first 4 episodes and things like that. If you'd like to do a little bit more interaction with us, some more surprises, have direct conversations, not necessarily have to wait for the week the delayed recaps, join our Patreon, which the link is up here on the screen and also in the comments. It is $5 or $7 Canadian a month. And because, there's not that many of you yet, we're really would love to build this community with you. So is there stuff that you'd love to see from us? We want to know about that. Would you love, lots of folks ask us for drunk episodes. Do you really want those? Were they really that entertaining? Do you want other things? Would you like, mini lectures on some of the side topics? Do you want a bigger explanation as to what Marthas theologically are, or what imprisonment does to bodies, like Aaron can do? What would you like from us? We'd love to know. And we'll throw it up on the Patreon. So I think we'll hit pause on Empathy Exercise for today. We will not see you on Friday on La Clubhouse, for I am on a plane coming back from Manhattan, Kansas. But we will see you next Tuesday here on the YouTube for another round of empathy exercises. In the meantime, our hope for you is that you embrace the shades of gray that life gives you, and that you always seek to be better than the Cleveland Browns.
It's a low bar, folks. Let's all just leap over it. Have a great week. We'll see you next week.
I think we can do it. Bye, everybody.